Delonghi Specialista Prestigio, if you can get your head around that Italian alphabet, is packed full with features including a built-in grinder, a tamping assisted method, shot controls, customizable buttons, and water temperature stabilization. Does it make a good enough coffee easily? And who would buy this coffee machine? Are you the person? Let's check it out. So let's have a look at it first. The machine, obviously, it looks beautiful. They've made it look quite modern, sleek, big dials and buttons everywhere, stainless steel, chrome, polished finish. So it does look expensive. However, I think they might have gone a little bit too far with trying to be too good. It just makes it feel like they're trying a little bit hard. This probably doesn't need to be quite as gaudy. I think the Breville one, which is a little bit more sleek and streamlined, might look a little bit more expensive. However, it's very similar. You can see it's clearly competing with the Breville's Barista Express Impress, which has the tamping assisted tamper on there. So it's a 54mm portafilter. So it's not a commercial machine, but it's got similar commercial products in terms of the stainless steel portafilter. It does have a decent grinder. However, the grinding settings are only 8 and maybe a few in between, but it's not a huge amount of grind options, especially when it comes to espresso. You want to be able to really hone in your grinds, which means that of a day, if the temperature is a little bit higher or the humidity is a little bit lower or slight little effects of the weather, you are going to notice it in the coffee and you're not going to do anything about it because this doesn't have the control that you'll need in order to get the best micro adjustments. Having said that, the grinder is fine. It's adequate enough. It grinds directly into your portafilter and then you just use the lever to tamp it, which means that you don't have to worry about a bad tamp. And it has all your normal settings as well. It's got your water temperature stabilization. You can't really do much about it. It's got 3 presets. That's about it. It's got a customizable part over here where you can select the amount of water coming through, and I'll go through that in a little bit. It's got your steam one, and it's got your water, hot water there as well. So it's nothing super advanced, but it's all the things that you need to get a decent coffee if you're a newbie and you just want to go to something, a step up from, say, a pod machine or some of the automatic machines to feel like a barista. Then you might look at something like the La Specialista. Inside, it actually has... It's not a dual boiler, but it does have dual thermoblocks, which means it can heat up your steam whilst it's heating up your brew as well. So whilst you can't do both at the same time, you can't make coffee and steam milk at the same time, what it means is that you don't have to wait as long when you're switching over from extracting your coffee to steaming your milk. Now, it also has pre-infusion, which, if you don't know what pre-infusion is, it means it's applying hot water to the bed of the coffee before the pressure starts, and that way it just saturates the entire puck, which expands all your little molecules of coffee grinds, and that just makes for a more even extraction, more or less. Now, how does it work? Well, you just press the button and it's a sensor inside that then measures the amount of coffee in there and appropriately adds enough water to saturate the puck. Now, it's not a perfect science, and I would much prefer to be actually focusing on the amount of time and watching when that pre-infusion, when the first drips of coffee starts coming through, then you apply the pressure. You don't have any of that option in this. It's just a simple press a button and then hope for the best. And even in saying that, there is really only one button to press. There's just an OK button in the middle of the panel here, and it doesn't give you an option for a single shot or a double shot or a manual. I have noticed as a default, the button runs for a little bit longer than you probably want to, so I would always suggest watching the shot and starting to learn when the shot is sort of finished and when it's starting to just release the chlorogenic acids, which aren't very particularly nice, and pressing manually and stopping it that way. Now, the customization ones I can tell you about in a second. You can fix that, but it's a bit of a rigmarole. Now, one of the good things about the La Specialista that I really like is that they have gone with a quasi-semi-pressurized basket as opposed to a pressurized basket. So I think originally they came with pressurized baskets, which is great for pre-ground coffee, but when you need to grind fresh coffee, then the oils that are in the fresh coffee clog up any pressurized basket, and it means that you won't get anything coming through there. It'll just drip through. And pressurized baskets are really just designed to create a false crema, It just uses the pressure build up to aerate the coffee as it's coming through, and it creates that fake crema. Whereas if you have fresh coffee, the crema is going to be there from all the oils that are trapped inside the beans, so you don't need that pressurized basket. Having said that, the baskets that come with the La Specialista aren't particularly great. You can see here, this is a double one, and it's tapered in quite a lot. So there's not a huge amount of tamping that's going to be accurate enough to get that to be a nice even puck. You're better off going out, buying yourself a little precision basket like this one from IMS, Passato. They are very good, and you can see how different the design is. The straight down walls means that you get a much more even extraction, and when you compress it, all of that coffee is compressed evenly across the bed. So you're always going to get a better extraction than from a tapered edge like this one. And the good thing about these portafilters is that they haven't got a huge amount in the bottom. A lot of the portafilters that come with these machines have all this plastic at the bottom to help the pressurized basket extract the coffee, and you can't fit in a regular basket. So at least with this new one, there's a lot of space there. You can get the basket size that you need, say 18 gram, and you can fit your basket in quite nicely. But you can also upgrade it. I would recommend you get a naked portafilter. They're really easy to buy online, find them online, and they come with a nice basket, and they don't have any of this bottom, so you can actually see the shot coming through. Just get a better understanding of what's happening in your coffee. There's not a huge amount of other things to talk about on here. We'll just get into making some coffees. There's a little tray here that comes down. I don't know why you'd really need this if you just wanted to have your cup sit up under higher, or you had a really big mug and you needed the space. But honestly, it feels like this is pretty superfluous. Like, there's not really any reason you need to go right up under here unless you want the coffee to spill out onto the water if you're making a nice Americano or something like that. But you can just hold it. Honestly, that just seems, I don't know. Don't know why you would put in there. Maybe you just want to rest your fingers on something. I don't know. But yeah, let's get into making some coffees, and we'll see how good the coffee tastes on this. Let's have a look at how it makes coffee. And you can see here, it is designed and targeted at people who are very busy, who don't have a lot of time to learn how to make coffee or want to learn how to make coffee, but want to have a decent coffee and want to be able to make espresso at home. So they've made it quite easy. Like the insert part here, I think it's a little bit finicky, but it's not terribly hard once you see, oh yeah, I need to line it up with the insert and then pull it across to the close. And when you've got your portafilter out, you pop it the same way into underneath the grinder to this tamping station. It automatically starts grinding as soon as you touch it in. And you can see here it's grinding straight from the hopper into your portafilter. The dose level is a little bit weird. It doesn't really tell you anything other than a min or max, and you've got to sort of guess. It doesn't tell you how many seconds that's going to grind for. It doesn't tell you how many grams roughly that's going to put out. So there's not really any way of telling how much to dose. You're just going to have to play around with it. The other thing that's interesting is, it's got a built-in tamp station, so that's really handy. Just automatically you want to get it out of the grinder and knock it out straight away. However, if you do that and then you close it again, you're going to automatically start grinding again, and that's going to overdose your basket. So it's really important you unlock the tamping lever when you close it again, if you've accidentally done that, because that stops it from grinding more coffee. Then you pull your tamper lever down as far as it can go, and that's supposed to give you a perfectly flat and even tamp. Now, whilst it might be flat and even, when I pull the portafilter out, I can see straight away there's grind on the edge, there's grind stuck around the sides, there's indent there from the top of here where there's a little nail, a little screw, and you can see there's grind on top there. So I want to be able to polish that off, clean that up, but I can't. I have to put it back inside here now and hope. I can't actually see what I'm doing, but I can hope that I'm making it a bit cleaner. So it's a bit annoying that, yeah, that's a better, but there's still a lot around the side. So whilst it helps you make an even one, I don't necessarily think it makes a better tamp than what you could do manually. We're going to pop it in here and lock it across. I can use my little tray, superfluous little trip tray. The water temperature here, the indicator doesn't tell me what temperature it is, just shows me it's at the medium, or I can go to the high or the low. I know from the manual that it's 92, 94, and 96 degrees. But for someone who doesn't know what that means or why you should have a hotter temperature or a colder temperature, it doesn't really make any sense to have it there. But if you are working with light roasted coffee, you'd go for a hotter temperature. And if you're working with a dark roasted coffee, you go for a lower temperature. So for medium roast, you can sort of put it in the middle and that'll be fine, or even medium high is fine as well. So now you press your OK button. And again, there's just a button that says OK. It doesn't say single shot, double shot, or manual, or coffee extraction. Nothing that really tells you that this is the button for your coffee extraction. But anyway, you press it. Now it's doing the pre-infusion. So you can see the pressure's coming up, up, up. And we've got our extractions pouring now. So it's a little bit coarse. It's running a little bit too much. So that means that, and it went very short, that shot. That shot didn't go very long at all. That means I have to create a bit more of a finer grind here, which I can't because I've got it on the finest setting, which is a bit irritating. It's on 1 and it only has 8 settings. So there's not very many grind settings available and I can't go any finer. So that means that I have to dose up more. I'm going to have to turn the dose up higher so that I can get more coffee in the puck, and that might slow it down a bit. So a thing on the grinder as well, it is a conical burr grinder set. So I think it's a 54 mil. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But the problem that I find with this grinder is that it only has 8 steps. 8 steps means there's only 8 different configurations that the grind size can be. So normally on a given, even a stepped grinder, you might get 30, maybe 15. This has 8. So it's not going to be able to cover all your different sizes for espresso especially. You're not going to be able to really hone in your grind and you cannot adjust it. So some of the other grinders like the Breville ones, you can actually pull the top burr set out and make it an adjustment either finer or coarser. It gives you a whole extra range, which makes it really easy because when you don't have a stepless grinder, which means that you can just keep continually adjusting the grind, it does give you some extra steps in between each of these individual ones. This Delonghi one only has the 8 and that's it. All right, so I'm going to actually weigh it so that we can get an idea of how much coffee is going into this basket, because that way I can make it easier for me to know how much coffee I'm extracting. So I'll put this in first. Whoa, that's a lot. Okay, that's not going to fit in the basket. So, and that's only 13 grams, which doesn't seem like a lot. If that is only 13 grams in that basket, that's well and truly under what I would say a double shot should be. We want to aim for about 18 grams for a double shot. So anyway, we'll tamp it and see what we can do. Okay, there's coffee around the edges, but we're going to go with that. Now, we're going to measure the output as well. So that's helped slow it down a fraction. You can see, though, the flow rate is still going quite fast, 4 or 6 seconds. And that was a very short shot. So it would have been all right to run it a bit longer, but we got 38 mils of coffee out in what was probably like 5-10 seconds. So it's definitely going to be on the sour side, bright side. Yeah, that's very, very sour and under extracted. Yeah, that's awful. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to play around with some of the programmable buttons. And this is my biggest gripe with this machine, is that they haven't gone for user experience. They've gone for some convoluted way of making sure you know how much water's passing through your coffee grinds, but it's really, really convoluted, and I'll explain why. When you're extracting your coffee, you have one button to press. You've got a button here that says ×2, you've got a button here that has temperature, you've got a button here that looks like T, and then you've got a button here that says My, and then right on the end you've got a dial which has 3 settings, or has a 4th setting as well, but it's got 3 settings: espresso, long black, and coffee. Now, this is the most confusing arrangement I have ever come across. What they're actually trying to say is espresso is the shortest amount of water, coffee is the second longest, and for some reason they've done it in this order where you go from shortest, middle to longest, but a long black, or some of the models says Americano, actually adds water in with it as well. So when you select that, go long black, when you press this, the water steam valve here, the water valve here actually deploys water as well as the coffee. So it's an automated Americano or long black. But that's not really helpful, because what you actually want to do, I think most people who are drinking long blacks can just make their own long blacks and fill up the water themselves. They don't need it to be automated like that. And what you're actually wanting to do is adjust the amount of volume of water coming through so that you get the right ratio. Let's look at these volumes and I'll show you exactly how to dial in your coffee. Now, this button here is called the My Coffee button. And this is when you want to program these little settings on the side to make the perfect coffee for you. However, it's so convoluted. This is how it sounds to a novice. If you want espresso, that's going to give you 35 mils, but you can program it from 25 to 90 mils, or you can hit the 2 times button and that doubles the amount to 75, or from 50 to 180 mils. Now, let's say you want more coffee, want more water to run through your coffee. Well, then you switch it over to coffee instead of espresso, which lets you go from 80 mils, or if you hit the 2 times button, to 120 to 240 mils. But let's say that isn't enough for you. You want to make your Americano or your long black with the water in it. You click it to the middle, which is the long black button, which is the largest of all, gives you 120 mils, or if you hit the 2 times button, gives you 240 mils, but it's adding in water from under here instead of water coming through the coffee. So that's all you can do with it. That's how you can make your special coffees every morning. Very confusing. I know. It's got nothing to do with how you make your latte or what coffee strength you want to use or anything like that. It just has some basic settings about how to make your coffee longer or shorter. Now, if you want to get into other settings, they've got some extra specially complicated settings that you can also change. If you want to add extra grinding adjustment, you can set it to espresso and then you use the ×2 all this to then create a longer or shorter range of grinding adjustments. If you want to make the water hardness harder or softer, or then you can set it to Americano, and then you can use the 2 times this and the OK button to set your temperature, the water hardness, to soft, medium, or very hard. And for those of you who just can't get enough of all these extra features, you have the auto off, which you change it to coffee, and you can use your 2 times to make it 9 minutes auto off, the temperature to make it 1.5 hours, and the OK button to make it 3 hours long. So yes, just some extra cool features that you might want to dig into and have no idea how to do it. That's your instruction manual right there. So now changing the espresso amount. So let's say you want to have a longer shot, more water coming through your coffees, which we need to also address the fact that a regular ratio of coffee grinds to water from coffee grinds to extracted is about 1 to 2. So if you're using 18 grams of coffee, when you're extracting your coffee, the coffee liquid that comes out, that should be double the amount of coffee grinds going in. So if it's 18 grams going in, 36 is about what you're aiming for. Now, you might want to go a longer shot, which you can change by turning the dial to coffee, which will get you more water running through the grinds. However, all that does is make your coffee more bitter and more watery tasting. It's not adding any extra flavors that didn't exist there before. So just so you know, if you start going to a ratio of, say, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, so 18 grams in, you're getting 72 mils extracted out, you're going to have a very watery, liquidy, and bitter tasting coffee, not a better tasting coffee. So we did get 44 grams out in 30 seconds. So I managed to slow it down using the basket that comes with it. So it's the semi-pressurized one that helped just slow it down. I did have to drop the dose level way back down again. So the actual dose level was probably at 13, maybe 12. That's better, much better, but yeah, it's obviously still a little bit bitter, but it's much better than it was definitely under extracted before. And it's not bad. It's definitely not great. I think it could be a lot better. I think just having the grinds be a bit finer would be way better. But I'm now going to try and make some milk with it. So we'll see how it goes steaming milk. Now we have the espresso shot ready. You can see how quickly it is to go to milk. We know the milk's ready already because the steam one light has signaled that it's on. Now we just turn this. It takes about 2 seconds or 3 seconds for it to start pumping water through here. You can hear, there we go, there's the water. So that's a quick purge I like to do. I want to get in here, start it here now. Of course, when you purge it, it releases the pressure. So that has to build it back up again. That's a little bit of frustration. Milk, steam one isn't super powerful either. So you really do have to get that angle to start spinning the milk around. Really low pressure. Yeah, so you could probably come back in a few days and your milk will be ready. So it takes a long time. And unfortunately, with these machines, you can't purge the milk, the steam one, before or after, because it just takes so long to build up that pressure. And then when you turn it off, it releases that pressure, and you turn it back on, it has to build it up again. So it's not very good for keeping your steam nozzle clean because you don't get to purge it straight afterwards. So just be aware of that. But the milk itself, very nice, very soft and easy to do. So it wasn't very hard, it's just nice and slow. So you can get still a decent coffee. There you go. There's how it operates in the field. It makes a really good coffee. It's a little bit overpriced. I think for this at $899, and I think that's US and Australian, which is crazy because even the current exchange rate at $899 would mean that a Australian dollars should be $1,300. But I'm pretty sure we can get these here in Australia for $899 Australian. So whatever's going on there, I'm not 100% sure of. Maybe they just have them cheaper in Australia to compete with the Brevilles. But honestly, if you were buying this and you live in the US, you might be better off buying it from Australia, getting a converter for the plug, and the plug is just a kettle plug anyway. You can just get one with a converter that goes down to 110 volts as opposed to the 240, and then you save yourself about $400 just on the machine importing it from Australia. So yeah, that's a little bit of a disappointment, is that this is not that much cheaper. And how much are you paying for all of these features that you don't really need if you're a newbie barista anyway? So you probably could save yourself another $300 just by removing some of these features, which are kind of superfluous to the newbie. And you got a machine that costs you about $600 or $500, which I think is probably a much better price point for what it can do based on all of the other options out there in the market. And I think if you're just wanting to dip your toes into being a home barista or making your own coffees and going away from pods or going away from takeaway coffees, then La Specialista, the Prestigio, it's not a bad buy. However, if you had a bit more money and you could afford to, say, spend $1,500, you might be better off looking at something like a Breville dual boiler and their Smart Grinder Pro, having the coffee machine separate to your grinder. That might be better. If you have the budget, you'll get a better coffee experience, definitely, and it might even last longer as well. Anyway, I'm Ride, your coffee coach. That's my thoughts. And as always, enjoy your brew.